The security footage would later become legendary on the dark web of elite nanny networks. 3 identical 7-year-old boys, dressed in matching Burberry suits, standing in a perfect triangle formation in their father's marble foyer. Between them, a woman in her 50s, curled on the floor, rocking back and forth, clutching what remained of her dignity and her Hermes handbag. "I have a PhD in child psychology," she whispered to no one in particular. "I raised the children of 2 presidents and a Saudi prince." "I don't understand." She was nanny number 47. The boys watched her with identical expressions of mild curiosity, like scientists observing a failed experiment. The one on the left, Marcus, checked his Patek Philippe watch. He was 7 years old. "New record," he announced. 47 minutes. "Still too long," said Michael, the middle triplet. "We're getting soft." "Should have gone with the snake," muttered Matthew, the third. "I told you the psychological approach takes forever." This is a story about 3 boys who had everything money could buy, and 1 woman who had something money couldn't. The ancient wisdom of a grandmother who once told her, "A child without discipline is like a river without banks. It will destroy everything in its path, including itself." But before salvation came terror. Before wisdom came chaos. And before the warrior nanny arrived, there was Reginald Ashford Montgomery III, a man who had conquered Wall Street but would be conquered by his own children. Reginald Ashford Montgomery III didn't just have money. He had the kind of wealth that made other billionaires feel poor. At 42, he built a tech empire that revolutionized cloud computing, made $3 billion by 30, and believed with absolute certainty that every problem in the universe could be solved with the right amount of capital and the correct algorithm. His triplets were born the same year he closed his biggest acquisition. He remembered looking at them through the glass of the NICU. 3 identical faces, 3 perfectly formed humans created by him and his late wife Catherine. She died bringing them into the world, a hemorrhage the best doctors in Manhattan couldn't stop, a problem money couldn't solve. That was 7 years ago. He hadn't processed it. Processing emotions wasn't in his skill set. Building companies, yes. Feeling things, no. "They're just children," he would tell his concerned board members when they asked why he kept bringing the boys to executive meetings. "Extremely intelligent children. Their IQ tests are off the charts. Marcus reads at a college level. Michael taught himself Mandarin in 6 months. Matthew hacked my home security system for fun when he was 5. What he didn't mention was that Marcus only read books about serial killers. Michael spoke Mandarin exclusively to insult the staff. And Matthew had used the security hack to lock the previous nanny in the wine cellar for 8 hours. The boys had learned early that their father's love was theoretical, expressed through expensive gifts and absent attention. They had learned that adults could be bought, intimidated, or broken. They had learned that there were no consequences in their world, only different levels of entertaining chaos. The nanny network had a private forum. Anonymous. Encrypted. A place where the women who raised the children of the ultra-wealthy could speak freely. There was a thread dedicated entirely to the Montgomery triplets. It was titled, "Stay Away, the Trinity of Terror." Nanny number 12 had lasted 6 days. The boys had systematically convinced her she was developing early-onset dementia by moving items around the house and gaslighting her about conversations that never happened. Nanny number 23 had made it 3 weeks. She'd quit after finding her car, a sensible Toyota, somehow relocated to the roof of the 5-car garage. The insurance investigation concluded it was physically impossible. The boys had done it anyway. Nanny number 31, a former Israeli Defense Forces drill sergeant, had lasted exactly 4 hours. She refused to discuss what happened. Her last words to Reginald were, "Your money cannot buy back what those children have lost. You're not raising boys. You're cultivating monsters." Reginald doubled her severance and forgot her name within a week. The forum post from nanny number 38 was legendary. "They short-circuited my pacemaker. I don't know how. The doctors don't know how. I have a goddamn battery-operated heart and somehow 3 7-year-olds weaponized it. I'm done. I'm moving to a monastery. I'm taking a vow of silence. I never want to see another child as long as I live." But the boys' masterpiece was nanny number 45, a woman named Svetlana who'd been personally recommended by a Russian oligarch. She'd survived Siberia, she'd survived the fall of the Soviet Union, she'd survived raising oligarch children in Moscow during the Wild West 90s. She lasted 9 days. On day 9, she woke up to find her room filled with exact replicas of herself. Life-size dolls with her face, her clothes, her jewelry. 12 of them. Positioned around her bed in a circle. All staring at her. The police investigated. The boys' alibis were airtight. They'd been at a gifted children's symposium in Connecticut that entire weekend. With witnesses. With documentation. The dolls remained unexplained. Svetlana moved back to Russia and opened a bakery. She sent Reginald one message: your children are not evil. Evil is simple. Your children are something worse. They are brilliant, broken, and completely unafraid of consequences. May God have mercy on whoever tries next. Reginald sat in his home office, exhausted in a way money couldn't fix. It was 2 a.m. The boys were finally asleep. The latest nanny, #47, had been airlifted to a psychiatric facility in Vermont that specialized in acute occupational trauma. His assistant had already informed him that no agency would work with him anymore. Not at any price. That's when the email arrived. No subject line. Just 3 words: I can help. The sender, Makena Okonkwo. No resume. No references. Just a photo of a woman who looked like she'd been carved from mahogany and iron. 6 feet tall, shoulders that could carry the weight of nations, arms that suggested she'd spent her life doing something considerably more demanding than childcare. And eyes. God, those eyes. They looked like they'd seen centuries. Reginald called the number provided. Mr. Montgomery, her voice was deep, accented, Nigerian, he thought. You do not need a nanny. You need a warrior. Your sons do not need discipline. They need initiation. They do not need consequences. They need purpose. What are you talking about? You are raising boys without banks. Rivers without direction. They destroy because they have never been shown how to build. They terrorize because no one has ever shown them what is worth protecting. Look, Ms. Okonkwo. Makena. And I am not here to convince you. Your sons have 23 minutes before they wake up and release the smoke bombs they've hidden in your home ventilation system. You have 3 choices: evacuate now, call the fire department in 20 minutes, or hire me. Reginald checked his watch. How could you possibly? Because I have raised boys like yours before. In my village before the wars came. After the wars came. And in the homes of men who thought money made them gods. She paused. 22 minutes now. When can you start? I am outside your gate. The first morning. Makena arrived at dawn. She wore no uniform. Just traditional Nigerian dress. A wrapper and blouse in deep indigo, her hair wrapped in matching cloth. She carried a single bag, weathered leather, the kind that had traveled through decades, not just miles. The boys watched her from the upstairs window. Big, observed Marcus. Probably ex-military, added Michael. Look at the posture. I give her 2 days, said Matthew, already calculating. 3 if she's stubborn. They'd stayed up all night preparing. The tripwire system in the hallway. The bucket of paint thinner balanced above her bedroom door. The dead bird in her bathroom drawer. Classic opening moves. Makena walked through the front door. Reginald had already left for Singapore, an emergency board meeting he couldn't miss. Or more likely wouldn't miss. Escape disguised as duty. She stood in the foyer, this massive marble monument to wealth without warmth, and did something the boys didn't expect. She laughed. Not a polite chuckle. A deep, genuine laugh that echoed through the empty halls. Oh, little warriors, she called out, her voice carrying up the stairs. I see your tripwire. Very clever. The paint thinner, creative, but the fumes would have given you headaches too. Amateur mistake. And the bird. She paused. That one's just cruel. Disrespectful to the creature's spirit. We'll talk about that later. The boys exchanged glances. No adult had ever simply acknowledged their traps before. Makena walked straight through the tripwire, triggering it. The bucket fell. She caught it without looking up, placed it gently on the floor and continued walking. I know you're watching, she said. Good. Here are the rules. 1. I do not break. 2. You will learn. 3. Everything you do to me we will discuss. Not as punishment. As lessons in what not to become. She reached the top of the stairs. The boys had assembled in the hallway, blocking her path. Move, said Marcus, his voice cold. At 7 he'd perfected the tone of entitled authority. No, said Makena simply. She sat down right there, cross-legged in the hallway, her massive frame somehow folding with grace. We wait together until you're ready to move. We don't move, you don't pass. You don't pass, you fail. You fail, you leave, said Michael, pleased with the logic. I'm in no hurry, Makena replied. She reached into her bag and pulled out what looked like carved wooden figures. She began arranging them on the floor. Tell me, have you heard the story of the 3-headed snake? Despite themselves, the boys were curious. The story is weapon. In my village, Makena began, still arranging her figures, there was a legend of a snake with 3 heads. Each head thought itself the smartest. Each head plotted against the others. Each head believed it could survive without the body. She placed 3 small snake carvings in a triangle. The first head wanted to bite every creature it saw, prove its strength through fear. The second head wanted to hoard all the food, show its power through control. The third head wanted to destroy the home they shared, demonstrate its independence. Matthew frowned. This was too on the nose. This is a stupid metaphor. Is it? Makena looked up. They spent so much time fighting each other they didn't notice the eagle circling above. Didn't notice the mongoose approaching from below. Didn't notice the fire spreading through the grass. She paused. What happened? Marcus asked despite himself. They died, Makena said simply. But not before destroying everything around them first. The other animals said, what a waste. Imagine what that snake could have been if the 3 heads had worked together. If they protected instead of destroyed. If they built instead of broken. You're saying we're going to die? Michael's voice dripped with sarcasm. Oh no, Makena smiled. You're already dying. You just don't know it yet. You're dying of loneliness. Dying of purposelessness. Dying of being raised by money instead of meaning. She stood up, her height suddenly imposing. But unlike that snake, you still have time. The question is, are you brave enough to live differently? She stepped around them, not through them, around them, giving them space, and walked to her room. 30 minutes, she called back. Then we start your training. Training for what? Marcus shouted. For becoming men worth being. The boys held an emergency meeting in Marcus's room. She's different, Marcus admitted. She's playing a long game, Michael countered. Classic psychological manipulation. Make us curious, then exploit it. Or, Matthew said quietly, she actually knows what she's doing. Doesn't matter, Marcus decided. We escalate. Go nuclear. Break her in 24 hours. They unleashed everything. Phase 1. They hacked her phone and sent messages to everyone in her contacts claiming she was retiring and moving to Antarctica. They changed all the clocks in the house to random times. They switched sugar and salt in every container. Child's play, really. Makena cooked breakfast with the salt sugar, tasted it, nodded, and kept cooking. In my village, we learned to eat whatever was available. This builds character. Phase 2. They released 3 raccoons into her room at 3 a.m. Where they'd gotten 3 raccoons in Manhattan remained a mystery even they couldn't fully explain. Makena opened her door to find her room trashed, raccoons hissing in the corner. She sat on her bed, pulled out a small wooden flute, and began playing a melody that sounded ancient, mournful, and somehow commanding. The raccoons stopped. Listen. Then slowly, impossibly, walked out of the room in single file. The boys watched from the hallway, mouths open. There are languages older than words, Makena said, putting away the flute. You should learn them before you forget how to listen. Phase 3, the master plan. They'd hired actors, expensive ones paid with cryptocurrency from their father's accounts, to pretend to be child protective services, complete with fake badges and convincing paperwork, claiming Makena was under investigation for abuse. The investigators arrived at noon. Professional. Serious. Completely convincing. Makena listened to their accusations. Read their fake paperwork. Nodded thoughtfully. Then she laughed. That same deep, genuine laugh. You hired actors, she said to the boys who'd been watching from the stairs. You paid them $3,000 each. Bitcoin transaction, traceable if you know where to look. She turned to the actors. I admire your commitment, but these children need to learn that deception has consequences. Real ones. She pulled out her phone. Option 1. I call the real police and we discuss fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. Option 2. You leave now, keep your money, and we all learn a lesson about the difference between clever and cruel. The actors left quickly. Makena turned to the boys. Her expression had changed. Not angry. Sit, she commanded. For the first time in their lives, they obeyed without thinking. You want to break me, Makena said quietly. You need to break me. Because if you can't break me, you have to face something terrifying. She pulled out 3 small mirrors from her bag. Old, wooden framed, the glass slightly warped. Look, she said, handing one to each boy. We know what we look like, Marcus said, but he took the mirror anyway. Do you? Makena asked. Really look. What do you see? The boys looked. In the warped glass, their reflections stared back, distorted, slightly monstrous. I see 3 boys, Makena continued, who are so afraid of being weak that they've become bullies, so afraid of being unloved that they've made themselves unlovable, so afraid of being hurt that they hurt first. Matthew threw his mirror down. It didn't break, the wooden frame caught it. You don't know anything about us, he said, voice cracking. I know your mother died, Makena said softly. I know your father hides in his work. I know you've learned that adults are temporary, interchangeable, and ultimately disappointing. She paused. I know you're terrified that maybe you're not special, that maybe you're just broken. Marcus stood up abruptly. This is therapy nonsense. We don't need. Sit down. There was steel in her voice now, not anger. Authority earned through decades of surviving things these boys couldn't imagine. Marcus sat. I grew up in a village that doesn't exist anymore, Makena said. War came. Soldiers came. They made children into weapons. Boys your age, given guns and told that power came from fear. Some of those boys became monsters. Some of those boys remembered they were human. She looked at each of them. You three stand at that same crossroads. You have power, intelligence, resources, no supervision. You can use it to terrorize, or you can use it to transform. But you have to choose. And you have to choose now because childhood ends quickly, and the habits you build now will define the men you become. You're trying to scare us, Michael said, but his voice was uncertain. No, Makena replied. I'm trying to save you. From yourselves. That night something shifted. The boys didn't plan attacks. They sat in Marcus's room in silence, each processing what Makena had said. She's manipulating us, Marcus finally said, but he sounded like he was trying to convince himself. Maybe, Matthew replied. Or maybe she's right. About what? Michael snapped. That we're broken? That we're headed for disaster? We're 7 years old. We're fine. Are we? Matthew asked. When was the last time we were happy? Actually happy, not just entertained by chaos. The question hung in the air like smoke. Marcus wanted to argue, but he couldn't remember. Every day was the same. Wake up. Plan attacks. Execute. Watch adults break. Feel nothing. Feel empty. Feel. I miss Mom, Michael said suddenly, quietly. He'd never said it before. They never talked about her. You don't remember Mom, Marcus said automatically. None of us do. We were born. I remember the idea of her, Michael interrupted. I remember feeling like maybe someone actually. He couldn't finish. The door opened. Makena stood there, not intruding, just present. May I tell you about your mother? She asked. The boys looked up, startled. You didn't know her, Marcus said defensively. No, Makena agreed. But I knew the woman who was her night nurse. Catherine's friend. They talked through the nights when Catherine couldn't sleep, when the pregnancy was difficult, when she was afraid. She sat on the floor, giving them the higher ground, a subtle gesture of respect. She was terrified, Makena said. Triplets, high-risk pregnancy, a husband who loved his work more than anything. But she told her friend, these boys will be special. Not because of money or intelligence. Because I will teach them that strength means protecting, not dominating. That power means serving, not ruling. She died before she could teach us anything, Marcus said bitterly. Did she? Makena asked. Or did she teach you the most important lesson by leaving too soon? That life is fragile. That we don't get infinite chances. That the people we love can disappear in a moment. She reached into her bag again, this woman and her endless bag of tools, and pulled out 3 letters. Worn envelopes yellowed with time. Your mother wrote these. One for each of you. To be opened on your 7th birthday. The room went completely still. Your father gave them to me yesterday. He'd kept them locked away. Couldn't bear to read them himself. Asked me to decide when the time was right. She handed one to each boy. The time is right when you're ready to listen to your mother's voice instead of your own pain. Makena stood and left the room, closing the door quietly behind her. The boys sat there for a long time, letters in hand, not opening them. Finally, Marcus broke the seal. The handwriting was shaky, written by someone very ill, very weak, but determined. My Marcus, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry. I wanted to be there for your first day of school, your first heartbreak, your first triumph. But life doesn't always give us what we want. You're named after Marcus Aurelius, a philosopher king who believed that true strength is controlling yourself, not others. I pray you inherit his wisdom, not just his name. The world will tell you that power comes from money, from intelligence, from dominance. That's a lie. Real power comes from knowing who you are when no one's watching. From choosing kindness when cruelty is easier. From building when destroying is faster. You're going to be angry at me for leaving. Angry at your father for being absent. Angry at the world for being unfair. That anger will try to make you cruel. Don't let it. Use it. Channel it. Turn your pain into purpose. I love you. I loved you before you had a name, before you took your first breath. And I'll love you after my last. Be good. Not perfect. Just good enough. Mom. Marcus's hands were shaking. Michael opened his next. My Michael. You're the middle child, always trying to prove you're not invisible. I see you. I saw you in every ultrasound, moving more than your brothers, always active, always searching for attention you thought you didn't have. You have it. You've always had it. Not because of what you do, but because of who you are. I named you after the archangel, a warrior, a protector. Not a destroyer. Remember that. Your intelligence isn't a weapon. It's a gift. Use it to protect people who can't protect themselves. The world needs builders, not breakers. Be a builder. I love you infinitely, Mom. Michael's eyes were wet. He wiped them quickly, but the tears came anyway. Matthew opened his last. My Matthew. My quiet one. My observer. You see everything, don't you? You see your brother's pain. Your father's distance. The cracks in the world that everyone else misses. That's your gift and your burden. Seeing clearly can make you cynical or make you compassionate. Please choose compassion. I named you after the apostle, the tax collector who became a healer. Someone who understood both wealth and poverty, power and powerlessness. You'll understand the world in ways your brothers might miss. Use that understanding wisely. Don't let your intelligence make you cruel. Smart people can be the cruelest because they always know exactly where to cut to make it hurt most. Be smart. But more importantly, be kind. I love you. Always, Mom. The three boys sat in silence, letters clutched in hands, 7 years of armor cracking all at once. Makena found them the next morning in an unexpected place, the kitchen. Together. Making breakfast. Not well. The pancakes were burned, the eggs were rubber, the toast was charcoal. But they were trying. We wanted to. Marcus started, then stopped. Apologies were hard when you'd forgotten how to make them. We read the letters, Matthew finished. We were wondering, Michael added, if maybe you could teach us. Not nanny stuff. But, whatever you were talking about. The warrior thing. The building thing. Makena smiled. Not triumphant. Gentle. Eat your terrible breakfast first, she said. Then we begin. The boys learned that Makena had been a teacher in Nigeria before the wars. During the wars. After the wars. She taught children how to read with burned books and broken pencils. She taught teenagers how to rebuild villages that had been destroyed. She taught boys who'd been child soldiers how to be children again. She taught the triplets differently than any adult had before. She taught them carpentry, not in theory but by having them build a playground for the children's hospital downtown. Their hands got blisters. They complained. She told them stories about building entire schools with fewer tools and less money. She taught them mathematics by having them calculate the costs and logistics of feeding homeless shelters. Made it real, not abstract. She taught them languages, not from apps but by taking them to immigrant communities in Queens, in Brooklyn, where people struggled to make sense of forms and applications and bureaucracy. Use your intelligence to serve, she said. Not to show off. Most importantly, she taught them Ubuntu. I am because we are. Your existence is connected to everyone around you. Your actions ripple outward. Your cruelty creates cruelty. Your kindness creates kindness. 3 months later, something unexpected happened. The boys had been secretly using their father's connections and their own hacking skills for a new project. Not destruction. Construction. They'd identified 47 nannies, all the ones they'd terrorized, and tracked down their current situations. Nanny number 12 was struggling with real dementia now, couldn't afford care. Nanny number 23 was facing bankruptcy from medical bills. Nanny number 31 was living in a women's shelter after fleeing an abusive relationship. The boys created a foundation. Used their trust funds, money that had been sitting idle, waiting for them to turn 18. Created scholarships for caregivers, medical funds for former nannies, support networks for domestic workers. They sent personal letters to each woman they'd hurt. Not excuses. Apologies. Real ones. We were broken and we broke you. We're trying to be better. This doesn't fix what we did, but maybe it helps what happens next. One of the nannies posted her letter online. It went viral. From terror to transformation, the Montgomery triplets redemption. Reginald saw it on the plane back from London. Read it 3 times. Called home for the first time in months without an agenda. Did you boys really? He couldn't finish. Makena taught us that wealth is a tool, Marcus said. Not a weapon. That power is responsibility, Michael added. That we can't bring Mom back, Matthew finished quietly. But we can honor what she wanted us to be. Reginald was silent for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice cracked. I'm coming home. Actually coming home. We need to talk. As a family. 1 year later, the Montgomery house was different. Not in furnishings. Money still decorated the walls. But in feeling. Reginald had stepped back from his company. Not retired, but delegated. Present. Imperfect, but trying. The boys were still brilliant. Still intense. Still challenging. But their energy had direction now. Marcus was starting a literacy program. Michael was developing translation software for refugees. Matthew was building security systems for domestic violence shelters. Makena sat in the garden, a new addition to the house, filled with plants from her village, from her memories, watching them argue about some project, voices raised but not cruel, passionate but not destructive. They're still difficult, Reginald said, sitting beside her. Good, Makena replied. Easy children become weak adults. Difficult children become strong ones, if they learn to direct their strength properly. How did you know? He asked. How did you know you could reach them when everyone else failed? Makena smiled. I didn't know. I believed. There's a difference. She paused. In my village we have a saying, a tree that refuses to bend with the wind will break. But a tree that bends too easily has no strength. Your sons were breaking because no one taught them how to bend without breaking. You're more than a nanny, Reginald said quietly. I know, Makena replied. I'm a witness. To what they were. To what they could become. And what they chose. She stood, her massive frame casting a long shadow in the afternoon sun. My work here is nearly done. You're leaving? Panic in his voice. Eventually, she said. But not yet. Not until I'm certain the habits are built. Not until I know they'll remember. Remember what? That the measure of a life isn't what you accumulate. It's what you give. That power without purpose is just noise. And that the bravest thing you can do is choose to be kind in a world that rewards cruelty. In the house, the triplets were laughing. Really laughing. Not at someone's pain, but at a shared joke, a moment of connection. It was the sound of boys becoming men. It was the sound of a river finding its banks. It was the sound of something precious and nearly lost, found again. The nanny forum never got an update about nanny number 48. Makena didn't participate in online discussions. But the word spread quietly through the network, whispered with something close to reverence. The Montgomery boys are different now. Change. Whoever got through to them, she must have known magic. Not magic. Just truth. Just time. Just the ancient wisdom that some problems can't be solved with money, only with presence, purpose, and the patient belief that broken things can be rebuilt. Some children are born good. Some are born bad. But most are born as rivers, powerful, directionless, waiting for someone brave enough to show them where the ocean lies. The triplets found their ocean. Not in wealth. Not in cruelty. But in the simple, revolutionary choice to build instead of break. And somewhere in Nigeria, in a village that rebuilt itself from ashes, elders tell a new story around fires. A story about 3 boys in a faraway land who had everything and nothing, who destroyed before they could create, who were saved by a warrior in Nanny's clothing. And that, the elders say, is why we teach our children. You are not defined by what you're given. You're defined by what you give back. The end.